Hi, and welcome to Stories Build Businesses, a show that proves your story isn't just something to tell, it's the strategy to build from. Here we think deeply, we care hard, and we explore how your stories and lived experiences are the key to building a business that's uncopyable, unforgettable, and unmistakably you. I'm your host, Megan Wright, story and strategy coach and founder of Stories Build Businesses, and I'm very excited today to be joined by Eloise. Eloise, thank you so much for joining me today. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting. I am a repurposing partner. So I support coaches, educators, industry leaders to amplify the content they're already putting out into the world, the magic they're already doing, the stuff that they may not be utilizing, and taking that further and making them basically unforgettable in their industry. That's my goal.
That thing about being unforgettable, I think is so important because
Yes.
there are so many people doing similar things online now, but
Hmm.
actually standing out for the right reasons
Yeah.
and being unforgettable in the sense of front of people's minds when they
Yeah.
think of needing support is so important. What is it that you've noticed in terms of when you're repurposing things? What are the things that you notice really make people unforgettable?
So I think the biggest thing's always get really intentional on what you're doing and do it really well. This isn't content for the sake of churning out more content. Like when I'm repurposing, it's really about pulling out the best bits of them and pulling out the bits of them that when you show up to a masterclass or something, that's you on your best day, right? How can we get that in front of people so that they are sending things to their bestie being like, you need this woman in your life, or you are the person they think of when they have XYZ problem.
100%. I love that. And I think you're right. It's taking those moments where you're at your most you, where you're
Yes.
most potent. And I
Yes.
think that is when you're in kind of that cliche of like you're in your zone of genius or
Yeah.
you're sharing your opinion that maybe isn't the same opinion as everyone else in your industry, but it's
Yeah.
when you're being yourself, but also you're putting yourself out there. You're kind
Yeah.
of going, this is me, take it or leave it. Actually, that is the content that really will either resonate with people or push them away if they're not the right person for you. But both are
Exactly.
equally important.
Yeah, that's what your content should be doing. It should be pushing away the people you don't want to work with. And it's bringing, like you say, those dream aligned soul clients into your world who see your stuff and they're like, oh my God, I love her.
I would love to know. So obviously you're helping other people repurpose their stuff, but
Yes.
what does that look like in your business? How do you repurpose?
Oh, such a good question. So I love writing. If I could, would write Instagram captions that would spend an hour people reading, or I love writing. So the biggest thing I do is I will write long form piece of content, and then I will go through it and I will take out what I think could be a good hook or what I think about could be a separate post in its own, that type of thing. Like I'll dissect things like that. But I also think sometimes just going down my feed, seeing what posts have done well. And there's the obvious things like I will often repurpose my posts. I'm always trying to think about how I can be a bit more strategic and save my time.
I think that's a really good way of looking at it. I would think there's the repurposing where you change the format. So like you said,
Mhm.
you take a static post, you turn it into a reel, a carousel, a talking head. Like the content's the same, but the
Yeah.
delivery is different. But
Yeah.
there's also, and I love what you said about kind of taking those longer forms and then breaking it down. I think the most important thing is finding what you love to do
Yes.
because for you, and I'm similar, I love writing,
Mm.
but I also really love talking because I'm someone who processes by talking. So
Yeah.
if you can find that long form that really suits you and your personality and your style of delivery, then you're effectively creating your own gold mine, right? Because then you can go into it and be like this one thing I did can become so many different things. And then
Exactly.
when you think about breaking it down further into then different delivery styles, you could
Yeah.
take one long piece of content and turn it into 20 odd pieces of content without even trying that hard.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so much easier than people think. And I think such a huge thing, and I totally get this because I feel it myself sometimes, is people have this fear of repeating themselves. That's the biggest thing that I think holds people back. And it's so easy to be like, oh, but I spoke about that the other day. Like, aren't people going to notice?
It always makes me think of the idea of going to a wedding or an event and wearing a dress you've worn before.
Yes.
And like you think everyone's gonna be like, oh my gosh, she's worn that dress already. No one's gonna remember what you wore unless you were the bride and you're rocking up in a wedding dress again. No one is going to remember. Like, no. But we convince ourselves that they will. And I think that's where people get into that mindset of like, we can't reuse things. But like for me, I was saying like repetition is recognition. Like the more you repeat
Yes.
something, like
Love that.
think about like big brands, they all have slogans that they've been using for 10 odd years. And that's part of why they're recognizable. TV adverts, they don't change every day. They're not like, oh, we ran that advert half an hour ago. We can't run. They run the same advert every 15 minutes until it like does wording. But actually, the more you see it, the more you remember it, for better or worse sometimes. But you remember it. You don't necessarily remember it the first time you see it. So I think if the big businesses are in the mentality of reusing the same adverts, reusing the same brand messaging, I feel like we shouldn't be holding ourselves to a higher standard than these companies that have got thousands of employees and tons of money to put into market research and branding and messaging, because if that didn't work, they wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, they clearly know what works. You don't see Nike changing up, like, how many years have they used the phrase just do it? Like, they're not changing it up. They know what works.
If someone came across you and they saw your content, what would you say is the mission that you're on to change
Love
in
that.
the
Okay.
business space?
Yeah, I think the mission I'm on to change is like less is more, as in amplify what you've already got. Stop feeling like you constantly need to be chasing new, and also that things don't always have to be super hard, and that the women I work with are bloody incredible and they should be seen for the magic that they do, and everyone should have a taste of their best day.
And would you say that that's one of your superpowers, is being able to look at those longer form pieces that people give you and find the gems? Because I think quite often people can't see their own magic in the way that outsiders can.
Yeah, it's really easy to look at your own stuff and be like, oh, that was all right. Or like, there's probably not a lot to share in there. But then I look at it and I'm like, that was an amazing analogy. That was like such a good bit you said. Often the women that I work with, it just happens to be as well that I am probably their ideal client in a lot of scenarios. So I have a really good idea of what their ideal client is thinking, the way that they act, the way that they like, the things that trigger them in a good way, the things that make them that light up. And so I think, like you say, it's so much easier to do that when you're an outsider looking in.
I find that as well with people when I'm helping them find stories. They'll come to me and they're like, oh, I don't have any interesting stories. And then like within like 5 minutes, I'm like, wait, what? Like you've got so many stories. And they're like, oh no, that's nothing much. And I'm like, no, that's perfect.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, is for us, what we think, the things we've experienced, the way we work, the way we talk, it's just normal. Like that's what we know. And so we don't always recognize how special or unique those things are, because to us it is just an everyday occurrence. And I think that's where outside perspectives, we're working with a repurposing partner or a storytelling coach, that's where it really comes into play, is you get someone who will find those bits for you so that you don't have to spend ages hunting through your life or through your content.
And I also think a huge part of it is maybe when I'm talking about the work that I do, people think like, oh, it's just me handing over like a really shiny, lovely masterclass recording, or maybe it's a podcast episode someone was on. And yes, that stuff is like obviously full of gold. Like the transcript from those, chef's kiss, the best. It's not just that though. It's voice note you sent a client when they had a problem. It's the half-finished course that you started and never put out. It's the ideas of future content, things that you haven't put out to the world but you jotted down one day in your notes app. Like it's all the little bits. And I think people often come to me and they're like, oh, it's so messy, like I'm embarrassed to send you this stuff, but like here's my folder. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like this is all such good stuff. And it's about, like you said at the beginning, finding what works for you. And I can work with that. Like I will find what I need, and people need to not worry about what it is they're giving over, basically.
Yeah. And I love that so much of what you do is around finding a simpler way of doing things. So it's not about doing more just for the sake of doing more. And I'm wondering, was there a time in your life when you either felt the pressure to do more just for the sake of it, or where you did do more and learned the hard way that that maybe wasn't the best approach?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. I think it probably stems from kind of what I started my business 3 years ago, and I started off as like very traditional VA, and then I found my feet quite quickly with it, and I was picking up clients and stuff. And then I think falling into the online world a bit more and more, and the noise really got to me at one point, I think, and I felt that pressure to be doing everything and trying to do everything. And then I think I had this analogy once that like a light bulb in a small room shines really brightly, but you put a light bulb in a big room and it doesn't shine as bright. And that's
Yeah.
kind of how I see how I work, because I'm like, there's only one of me. I want to be really intentional about what I do. I want my work to sound like me. I always want it to be me. How do I do that? And ignore some of that noise.
I love that analogy of when you're trying to illuminate a space, the amount of space you're trying to illuminate has to be in line with kind of the power or the wattage that you have to give. Like, a light can only shine as bright as it can, right? Like, you can't just will it to be brighter because the room is bigger. Like, it has a capacity. And I think as humans, we've got a capacity as well. Like, we only have so much energy to give. And so knowing that capacity, knowing what you can do to the best of your ability and show up as yourself, I think that's an incredible realization to come to. And one of the things that I always notice about you is you always come across as incredibly nurturing and caring. So I'd love to know, how do you feel like your role as a child or the roles you took on in childhood have played a part in you being this helping hand for people in business now?
So I am eldest sibling, like through and through, eldest of four, and my parents got divorced when I was quite young, around 7-ish, I think I was. So living with my mum and naturally kind of stepping up to be that like second parent role. And that's definitely stayed with me in adulthood. I can't help it. Sometimes it's my enemy in the sense of I care too much about people or things, or I worry about people, but at the same time, I'm really good at spotting when people need help, and I'm really good at knowing where to like put myself to alleviate pressure. And that's kind of always been my thing. I was a nanny for 7 years, and I always said it wasn't about looking after the kids, but for me, it was the mum coming home from work and saying like, thank you so much for doing this today. Like, it's been such a relief knowing that they've been safe and like I've been able to just be myself at work. I think so much of that comes from being an eldest child. I just want to look after people and make sure they're okay.
No, I completely resonate with that. And I actually think it's really interesting that you've effectively gone from nannying human babies to now you're almost nannying people's business babies, where you're like, I'll look after it.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't realize how much crossover there would be. The role that I play and that caring element that comes into it is still very much the same.
And I think also the trust as well, because the trust to hand over your physical child, but
Yeah.
also like when people are building businesses, particularly when it comes to our voice and the content we're putting out, like if you're entrusting somebody with that, that's a huge amount of trust you're putting in someone, because this thing that you care about so much, you're allowing someone else to be part of.
It took me outsourcing for the first couple of times to realize how hard it is to give over your business. And I think that actually ties into like a lot of what I do now at the content repurposing, where we are in the era of ChatGPT content, and it's making people even more hesitant to outsource things because they don't want stuff coming back that sounds like robots, right? They don't want something that doesn't sound like them. But when I am taking your own words and turning into something new, it's impossible for it to not sound like you.
And I wonder, do you ever notice that there's kind of a reluctance where people feel like asking for help or outsourcing somehow reflects negatively on them, or that they feel like, oh, I should be able to do this all myself?
1,000,000%. Like, there is that guilt of not being able to do it all. And I became a VA. People were like, why can't I keep up with my business admin? Like, other people are doing it. What's stopping me? And it's a combination, obviously, of like guilt. And also, I think it comes down to a lot as well, like people not knowing what's going on behind the scenes of other people's businesses. The help that people have.
Exactly. And also, sometimes it's not necessarily that people have help, but they just might not have as many other things kind of
Yes.
on their time.
Yeah.
When you look at health conditions or
Yes.
mental health challenges, neurodiversity, like we've all got different things that we're bringing into business. And so there are probably other considerations outside of just, could I do this all by myself?
Yeah.
Maybe, but
Yeah.
should you have to?
Yes, I think a lot of it. So I have Crohn's disease, so I'm already very aware that I probably have less energy, and I physically can't do the thing of like, I'm going to stay up and work on this thing all night because I will pay the price of it. I have to be really boundaried with myself. So I'm like, what am I going to do with the energy and the resources and the time I have available with my things. And especially as women as well, we have so many responsibilities, like kids, partners, friends that need us, caring responsibilities. Like,
Let's be honest, we've both got cats as well, and they are incredibly
I've got
emotionally
cats.
demanding.
So yeah, we all have so much going on, and I think it all comes into play of like the guilt, isn't it, that we're not doing it all.
How do you cope with that balance between setting boundaries to protect yourself and your own well-being, but also that drive and helpfulness that we've already chatted about? How do you balance that?
It's really, really hard. It's something I've really had to work on because, like you said, my nature is just to say yes to everyone, do everything. But I realise, or I've come to realise, that often I'll say yes to things and I'll do it and then I'll feel really bad about it. And I'm like, that's not a nice feeling anymore because I'm either exhausted or I gave someone capacity that I don't have. Like, I'm talking like not just work, like family stuff too. It's tricky. It's up to me to put that boundary in, but it's hard. It's really hard because I just
Really
want to
hard.
help everyone and I can't. I've only got so many hours in the day. So I just have to be really intentional about what I take on. And so I try and schedule a lot of things for me, like little things that like fill my cup up first before I start giving out to other people. That's what I try and do.
I think it's so important. So when I work with clients, I've got my Care, Connect, Create framework, which is literally at the root of everything I do. And I always start with care because 100% our capacity and our ability to put boundaries in place to look after ourselves, that will make or break the success of a business.
Yes.
Because if you are giving away too much of yourself, if you're wearing yourself down, eventually you are going to have to stop.
Yeah.
That's a hard stop. That's not like, oh, okay, I'm just taking a little break. That's like everything is stopping. I'm not showing up anywhere. I'm falling off the face of the earth and just needing to go away and look after myself. And actually, that isn't good for anyone. It's not good for you. It's not good for the business. It's not good for your clients. Whereas actually, if we build from a place of being sustainable and looking at care as not like this nice add-on, it's like, no. This is as important as creating content, as important as client work. This is an integral part of my business.
I think it's really helpful to have a toolkit of things that you can do. Like having those people, all those things you can reach out to is such a game changer, I think. And also being able to spot the difference between like having an off day and also like okay, stop, I need to recalibrate, like things are feeling off. Like looking at how that shows up for you, I think is big. Like for me, it's crying. If I start crying a lot, I know something's wrong.
I quite like a cry though.
It's very cathartic.
I have films that I know will make me cry, like without a doubt. Even if I only watch like the last 15 minutes, I know I'll cry. And sometimes I'll put them on because I can feel in my body that I need to cry. And it's that emotional release catharsism of like, okay, I'm just getting this out of my system. I know I've got emotions that I need to process, that I need to move through. And it's a lot better to get them out rather than try and kind of hold them in and just carry on as if nothing's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. The crying that's more like a danger sign for me is like if I drop an onion in the kitchen or something, and then I'm just like, everything's going wrong. Then I'm like, you don't seem like you're coping with stuff very well, Eloise. What's going on? And I look at my diary and be like, oh, I have agreed to about 5 million things this week. What can I cut down?
Yes, I think that kind of over promising or kind of over scheduling can be a real challenge because I think we all want to be busy, we want to have lots of clients, but actually there is a danger in over committing yourself and putting too much into your diary.
100%. Yeah. It's really easily done. My diary is very much like time blocked these days. Like, try and keep really strong boundaries in it. We want to say yes to things, right?
I sometimes think there's more power in saying no to things than saying yes.
Whenever I say no to something, I try and see it as like, I don't see it as something sad. I'm like, oh, I wonder what's going to come along instead. Like, I wonder what I've just made room for.
So I would love to know where you see content and repurposing going in the future.
I think the obvious with the content and repurposing is the AI stuff. I think more and more we are going to be seeing this craving for raw, vulnerable, honest content. I can already see it in the online world where I can very easily pick out the people's content that I love looking at because it's them. I hear their voice. are hearing them. So I think it's going to go two ways, and that more and more people are going to be using ChatGPT, but I don't see that as a threat or anything to my business, because more and more people are having that craving for authenticity. So they're kind of both growing at the same time.
Do you know what? I completely agree. I think that is the direction it's going in. And for me, I find it really interesting because the AI, similar to you, I think AI will never replace human storytelling. So it's not something that I feel overly threatened by. What I actually find more worrying is, like you said, that kind of raw, vulnerable storytelling, because I think people will overcorrect. People will overshare. They will push themselves past their boundaries in what they feel comfortable to share, because there will be almost this, well, I have to prove I'm not AI. So I'm
Yeah,
going to share everything. Whereas
that's a really
actually,
good point.
for me, it's so important that with storytelling, it's not just about storytelling, it's safety. Like, there has to be emotional safety in what you're saying, but also for the audience. Because what you don't want is your audience to be reading things and being bombarded, not just by you, but from loads of different angles with these slightly traumatic stories. Because that's not good for anyone in terms of like well-being
Yeah.
and mental health. So I think that's, for me, where I see the potential flaw going forward, is that people are going to have to find that balance where they can tell stories and create content that is, like you said, authentic and has an element of vulnerability, but without overstepping into that kind of dangerous or performative vulnerability. It becomes that race to be the
Yeah.
most something, like the most vulnerable, the most authentic, the biggest story. That's not necessarily the foundation that I want to build a business on. I want to build it on authenticity and being myself, but there are boundaries between my business life and my personal life. Being authentic doesn't mean sharing everything. Like,
Yeah.
it's not dishonest to
Yeah.
have boundaries. And I think people sometimes think that if you're not saying things, you're being dishonest, when actually that's just boundaries.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
And I know I mentioned to you that I like to gift the word as we're
Oh,
wrapping
yeah.
up. And the word that for me kept coming up was capacity. That actually we've all got a limited capacity, and that's something that you are so excellent at, is not only managing your own capacity, but also helping other people to manage theirs so that they can achieve the things they want to do without overworking themselves or overburdening themselves.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, that's it. You smashed it. That's it. That's me in a nutshell.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Eloise. Thank you to everyone for listening to Stories Build Businesses. If today's episode has resonated, I'd love you to share it with somebody who needs to hear it, and let me know over on Instagram at Stories Build Businesses. Remember, your story matters more than you think, and the way you build your business gets to feel good. See you next time. Bye.